We are on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph and Beitsa 35a. Very close to the end of the parak, Bezrat Hashem, and in the middle of the page, just before the middle of the page, we have Rav Shimi Bar Ashi coming along, supposedly to help somebody who had come in the Gemora before. We weren't sure exactly what he was up to. So here we've read a Rashi, which I think perhaps we should reread, but unless someone can explain it on the outside, Rashi explains what Rav Shimi Bar Ashi is really up to here in this Gemora, right? What his intentions are here.
His intention is to support the Nafshi.
Support the Nafshi, to support the one who had been trying to what? Rashi's very explicit here in what he had been trying to do.
He's trying to show that it's people who are not Shabbos that is Gemora Beitsa.
Okay, but more specifically, we had Mar Zutra supporting his father, who had paskened a halacha. Let's remember that first. That Rava had asked Rav Nachman the question of what? Can Shabbos be kovea for Meiser? Can Shabbos make something obligated to Meiser, even if it's not a finished product?
And he said it's in our hands.
And he said, yes, I've received a tradition that it does. Right? Correct?
Yes.
And then his son came along, Mar Zutra, the son of Rav Nachman, came along and said, I believe I can even prove my father's sock from a Mishnah, from the Mishnah in Beitsa, our Gemora, right? Where it says a man stands up over the muksa items, which Rashi said are these raisins to be that are not quite ready, but they're somewhat ready. And they're still considered muksa, they're still considered inedible for many people, for most people. But he could stand up over them and say he wants to eat from them the next day.
Yeah.
And the Mishnah tells us a number of halachas. First of all, if it's a Shemitah year, what he just did works. It takes off the status of muksa and he can eat it the next day. How does he actually say that dibur of Hazmana to take off the muksa status? That's a machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. But aside from that, there's another diuk in the Mishnah that what?
What else the question?
Well, it's a diuk in our Mishnah that we've been contending with here, that if
it's Shvius,
it says it's Shvius, that's not a diuk.
no, if it's not Shvius, if it's a rest,
It would have been a regular year had it not been Shemitah. Would have been chayiv and meiser, would have been usher to eat the next day, even though he did a good hazmana. So what's wrong? Why would he not be able to eat the next day? Because of meiser. So inadvertently, right, that's how Mishnahos work. They teach you extra kiddushin. There's an extra kiddush here that his dibur, as good as it was as taking off the status of muksa, it also made it kavua for meiser. How did his dibur make it kavua for meiser? So Mar Zutra, the son of Rav Nachman, said, I can bring a proof from here to my father that it must have been the element of...
Could be the element of table, right?
No, his father had said to Rava...
Shabbos.
Right, the Shabbos does it, right? Remember the question that Rava had asked Rav Nachman?
The Shabbos might be
Kavua for Meiser, even if it's not a finished product.
Yeah.
And what did Rav Nachman say?
It says it does.
Let him find it. Yeah? Aruchu biyadenu. Aruch biyadi. Yeah.
To my hands.
What is that? Means he knows the halacha. Having it in his hand means he knows the halacha. What halacha? He's saying, I know the halacha. I received a tradition. That's what it means. What? But that what? He received the halacha that what? To answer Rava's question, how he has to say one way or the other.
The Shabbos is kavua with finished product or with not finished product.
So, for our intents and purposes, we would say Shabbos is kovea, even if the fruit
It's finished enough.
is not a finish. That's the chiddush, right? Even if it's not a finished product,
Yeah.
right? So he answered the question. But did he bring a proof?
No.
He just said it's in our hands, meaning he has a Kabbalah. Doesn't tell us where he got it from. We assume he got it from his Rebbe, maybe. Doesn't say, doesn't bring any proofs to what he's saying. So Mar Zutra, Breda Rav Nachman, came along and said to his father, so to speak,
We also taught Ma Mishnah.
meaning I can bring a proof from a Mishnah to what you just said.
Is it yours?
So you don't just have to say you have a tradition in your hands and we're supposed to believe you, which is obviously we have to. If a rabbi says I have a tradition, we believe him, right? If Rav Elyashiv says he has a tradition from his father to a certain halacha, we have to believe him, right?
Yeah.
If a posek says he has a tradition from the earlier generations to halacha, we have to believe him. But it's better if we can bring a proof, right?
Yeah.
So Rav Nachman says he has the halacha in his hand, meaning he does know the halacha. He doesn't. All we know is that he has a tradition about this halacha. It doesn't say where he got it from or that he has a proof. So his son, Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman, tried to what? Bring
Proof.
from
Ma Mishnah.
our Mishnah, right? It's much better if you can bring a proof from a Mishnah. That's like the best kind of proof you can bring. So we just ran through the proof that in our Mishnah it's meduyik that if it had been a regular year, the dibur of the fact that he wants to eat it the next day would have made it what?
We made it Chayav.
Chayav and Meiser, which is what we call kavua for Meiser, right?
Yeah.
And yet, what's the explanation? Why? Why, if he just stands up and says he's going to eat something the next day, doesn't make it Chayav and Meiser? Was it just the fact that he made a dibur? Is that enough? Or is it some other factor? So Mar Zutra is trying to prove that what? It must be the... No.
Must be.
Supporting his father.
Must be
What had his
Shabbos.
father just paskined when Rava asked him the question?
Shabbos is complete.
Shabbos is kovea, even if it's not a finished product. So he's trying to bring a proof to his father from the Mishnah that it's what factor that's making the fruit and Chayav and Meiser in a normal year?
Shabbos.
Shabbos. Okay? Not just a dibur. In fact, it's a dibur about Shabbos, that he's saying he wants to eat it tomorrow, that's Shabbos. But he's designating it for his Shabbos meal. Now,
So how does that proof work then? Is that a proof enough?
well, if you can't attribute it to anything else, you have to say it must be the Shabbos factor.
But he's still saying I want to eat it.
Okay, so is it the very fact that he said he wanted to eat it that made it Chayav and Meiser, or because he said he wants to eat it on Shabbos, and it's designated for a Shabbos meal? So that's the tug of war between Mar Zutra and this antagonist guy, the Makshin.
Right.
Makshin comes along and says, who says it's the Shabbos factor? Maybe it's just the fact that he said he wants to eat it. Then the question was, if that's really true, so why mention Shabbos at all? Oh, and we have an extra kiddush that Tevel is not muktzah, fine. But then we go on right, that's just a defensive move. But now we go on the offensive to try to take Mr. Antagonist out, and we bring Shitas Rebbe Eliezer from the salt and the olives. The dibur isn't enough by itself. As you said, if dibur is enough, then this maisa that he put it on his plate to eat it should have been enough. And it's not. If he could put it back in the jar, then the dibur's not enough. And we went on and on, back and forth about that. So in the end of the day, it seems that the antagonist was knocked out. Because,
If he says here, I want to eat this fruit, right, on Shabbos, and I want to eat these olives on Shabbos.
Yeah.
And he takes the olives from the jar.
Yeah.
And his Tamei, in the container we know stuff all this, that situation, he can't put it back, right?
Okay, if you can't put it back, we already know that is a reason to say it's Chayv and Meiser.
It's Chayv and Meiser. So that's the proof. That's what he's trying
No,
to
that's
show.
not the proof. The proof is in the other case where he could put it back.
He couldn't get it back.
We said it's not Chayv and Meiser.
Right.
So you see, Dibur's not enough. And then we try to say, well, maybe our case in our Mishnah is where you can't put it back, and the Gemora said, no, that's ridiculous. It's already back, and you can't put it back. So it seems that Mr. Antagonist failed. He didn't bring a good proof because we proved we had a counter-insurgency. We counter-attacked him from this whole Mishnah about Rabbi Eliezer and the olives. But you see, Rabbi Eliezer does not hold that Dibur is enough. If Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold it's enough, then in our Mishnah he can't be holding Dibur's enough. So what is it? What is it in our Mishnah that's making it Chayv and Meiser? It must be the Shabbos factor.
Like Rashi said, that Dibur cannot do it because even putting it in front of him cannot do it. How much more so?
Right. Because what's the Dibur doing anyways? It's saying I want to eat from here. It's designating for eating. Well, putting on our plate is even a bigger designation for eating. It's doing a Meiser to designate, and even that doesn't make it Chayv and Meiser if you could put it back. So therefore, you see, designating something for eating does zero for making something Chayv and Meiser, unless you have some other factor like you can't put it back. Fine, if you take something out and you can't put it back, then it's permanently in your eating arsenal. That makes something Chayv and Meiser by itself. But the Dibur just designating something for eating is not enough.
If you can't put it back, you cannot eat some of it.
If you can't put it back, so then it's permanently by you. It's
if you can't put it back.
Can?
Yeah. Then you can still eat it as a snack, right?
Yeah, that's right, because it's not yet Chayv and Meiser.
Right. And if you cannot put it back, it's a meal if you go take it.
Right. Therefore, it's already Kavua.
So, in Bulgaria, it'll be Chayv and Meiser.
Huh?
If you can't put it back, it'll be Chayv.
That's what we see. He said that's what Rabbi Lezer holds at least. Tanakama didn't speak that way, but Rabbi Lezer does speak that way. So then, in the case where you could put it back, it's Pater from Meiser, according to him. And why is that? It must be that just designating something for eating doesn't make something Chayv and Meiser. So if that's true, then our Mishnah, it has to be the Shabbos factor which made it Chayv and Meiser, not the Dibur factor.
Okay.
So that brings us to Rav Shimi Barash. He says to the antagonist guy, okay, sorry that you failed in your mission, but I want to help you in that. Right? Now Rashi puts out two different messages in this Rashi about Rav Shimi Barash. He says, really, it is the Shabbos factor that's making it Chayv in our Mishnah. Sounds like he's assisting Mar Zutra and not the antagonist. But then he turns around and says, if you really want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father, this is how you should have to do it. So he's kind of like saying, you lost the battle, but you didn't necessarily lose the war. You lost the battle, that really in our Mishnah it has to be the Shabbos factor. Right? That we proved. We did prove that. But, he says, it's going according to Rabbi Eliezer, and if you really want to remove Mar Zutra from... Mar Zutra is trying to bring this Mishnah to prove the general halacha. And that I can show you a way to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father with the general halacha.
They're trying to bring the Mishnah to prove.
Again, Mar Zutra tried to bring this Mishnah as a proof to his father about the general halacha. That generally speaking, Shabbos is kovea for even when it's not finished product.
For this Mishnah for his father,
To support his father, who had said already as a psak, but without a support, that it is true that Shabbos is kovea for Meiser, even if it's an unfinished product.
It is true that.
So We already know that his father paskins that way. That's not a question, but it's nice if you can bring a support. That's why Mar Zutra was struggling to bring a support for his father. So that whoever was the antagonist who tried to remove the support that he was giving his father from this Mishnah and say it was the Dibur factor, wasn't the Shabbos factor, he failed in his Mishnah. Right? We already proved that he's wrong. Because we proved Shitas Rabbi Eliezer in another place with the olives. Right?
Yeah.
But Rashi says it's true that you're going to have to admit that this is the Shabbos factor in our Mishnah that did the trick, and not just the Dibur, but if you really want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father, whatever your reason for wanting to do such a thing, if that's really what you want to do, I can still help you do that. But you can't do it the way you wanted to do, a direct hit. You're going to have to do it indirectly.
So they're kind of ignoring the fact that this is a traditional learning.
We're not talking, that's not the point. You're missing the point. I tried to explain that before. We may still have to accept Rav Nachman's psak. We're not going to, he says, this is my tradition, we can't disprove him and his tradition. It's like you're telling me I keep a minhag of Chabad. I'm not going to be able to prove that that's not Chabad minhag, that is Chabad. But I can prove maybe, there's other minhagim or there's other, right, whatever. The point is, we're not necessarily trying to attack Rav Nachman. We're talking Mar Zutra. That's exactly what this Rashi is good for. I would have appreciated a Rashi a little bit like this in the beginning, when Mr. Antagonist reared his head in the first place. But now we finally see, right, this is what we often say, that at the beginning you don't always see what someone's up to, but later, after the back and forth, sometimes it comes out what he's really up to. Here we see in this Rav Shimon bar Ashi coming to the help of the antagonist somewhat, what the antagonist is really up to, because he's saying to the antagonist, if you really want to accomplish your dastardly deed, so to speak, you want to do what you really set out to do, which was what? To remove Mar Zutra from helping his father. Right? It's like someone we call them a housebreaker. Right? You're trying to remove the son from helping the father. So what I tried to explain to you before is, just like Mar Zutra is right, even if the tradition is sufficient, but it's always better to have a proof. In the same way, the way that people used to learn in those days was that if you bring a proof, I may not be able to disprove your general position, but I can disprove your proof. So even though we may not end up moving Rav Nachman out of what he said, right? And you can't even really do that. He made himself untouchable. He said, this is a tradition we have in our hands. We can't argue with that, right? But his son, who wanted to bring a proof from our Mishnah, that we could disprove. Right? If you try to bring a proof, I can knock your proof down. So even if you didn't really need the proof in the first place, but you felt you wanted to bring a proof, right? Mar Zutra felt better bringing a proof to his father. That's what we're trying to remove and saying, in a way, we're kind of like, if you think about it, supporting Reb Nachman. Reb Nachman never brought a proof.
I was just thinking, you're saying, you know what, the tradition is good, but then try and prove it.
Right. The truth of the matter is, in Kibbud Av'Ein, I'm not saying Mar Zutra, the son of Reb Nachman, was transgressed Kibbud Av'Ein, but the truth is, just as like when your father brings something up, you're not supposed to contradict him, you're really not supposed to also bring a proof to what he said, as if he needs you to prove it. It's a bit touchy, that, but if you think about it, it is a bit cheeky, right? Your father decided not to bring this as a proof. He certainly knew all the Mishnayos. That's impossible to say Reb Nachman didn't know all the Mishnayos. He knew all the Mishnayos, right? Mm-hmm. And he did not bring this as a proof. So he must have realized that it's not a good proof. And you come along and you decide to be smarter than your father and bring it as a proof, even though you're trying to prove your father's position. But it's cheeky nonetheless. Chas v'shalom, I'm not trying to say Mar Zutra did the wrong thing, but just to sort of if you now get a bit of an inkling of, maybe you ask, what's the motivation of the antagonist, right? Why would you want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father? What are you, a housebreaker? Are you trying to... Here the son was doing something noble. He's trying to help his father. You're trying to knock the son down? What kind of a cruel person are you? What kind of a Russia are you? Here the son was trying to help the father. Now you're trying to make the son not help the father? It's not nice. And yet now Rav Shimi Barash is getting into the act and say, you want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father? I'll help you do it. Right? That doesn't seem very nice, right? Not only the antagonist, but now we have a name of a great rabbi who was interested in removing Mar Zutra from helping his father. What kind of a thing is that? The son wanted to help his father. Why can't you let him help his father? What do you have to help remove him from being a help to his father? What kind of a person are you? The answer is that indirectly they're actually supporting Reb Nachman, because if Reb Nachman didn't bring it as his own proof, and he knew about it, it's not like a Beitsa that you can say, perhaps you didn't know this Beitsa. Not everybody knew every Beitsa, right? There were thousands and thousands of Beitsas, so it's often, and Reb Nachman himself, by the way, had an assistant. Remember those Gemoras we've had from time to time, where it says Reb Nachman had someone called a Tana who would stand next to him, and when things were kind of at a lull, he would say, okay, say over a Beitsa. He liked having people who said over new Beitsas, because it gave him new material to talk about, to think about. So if Mar Zutra would have said, I have a Beitsa to help you, Tati, that would have been okay, really, if you think about it. But to say, Tati, it's a Mishnah. Well, his father knew that Mishnah, right? But Beitsa maybe didn't know, but the Mishnayos he knew. His father knew all the Mishnayos. Do you think Rav Nachman knew all the Mishnayos? They had to. If they forgot one Mishnah, they were out of the Amora club. They were dethroned. Right? They had to know every Mishnah, like the back of their hand. So what is the son coming along and saying, in effect? Tati, maybe you forgot this Mishnah. That's a bit chutzpah. Talking to the Gadol Ador, and your own father is a Gadol Ador. You say, maybe you forgot this Mishnah. If it had been the wife, she could get away with it. The son's not allowed.
And I can ask your mother if she knows. So basically what they're saying is that we hold with the tradition, we're not happy with your proof.
Right. And for the reason, I'm suggesting a reason why they wouldn't be happy with it. Why they have this agenda of trying to remove him from... Okay, but besides that, right, whether I'm right or wrong is almost irrelevant. That's just to answer up Sruli's question of why you would want to do that.
And why wouldn't they hold by
What?
By Mar's interested.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that he's maybe undergraded his father a touch. Is that the reason?
But I'm suggesting, I mean, I can't bring a proof to what I'm saying, but I think it fits logically that, in a sense, Rav Nachman did not bring it as a proof because he knew it's not a good proof.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to try to show how Mar Zutra's proof is not a good proof, I'm actually supporting Rav Nachman in an indirect way. But either way, I would say, even if that wasn't an agenda, like in our Gemora it seems like an agenda, from this Rashi you see it's a bit of an agenda. Let's remove Mar Zutra from helping his father. Right? Which sounds a bit strange on face value, but I tried to explain it. But even if there wouldn't be this agenda, okay? That's the general methodology of the Gemora. Somebody brings a proof, it becomes your mitzvah to try to knock down that proof. Just as important as it is to say true statements, it's also a mitzvah to tear down false statements. So if I can show you that your proof's not a good proof, which doesn't necessarily mean I'm disproving what you said. It's just your proof is not a good proof. It's like a defense attorney. I think we once used this mashal, right? In order to defend his client, a defense attorney need not prove that he didn't do the murder. Right? Let's say I'm defending someone who's accused of murder. I don't have to get up and prove he didn't murder.
The shadow of doubt there.
As long as I can just cast a shadow of a doubt that he did do it, then I've taken away your burden of proof that you need to prove that he did do it. It's the same thing in the Gemora, Lahavdil. Somebody brings a proof. Mar Zutra brought a proof from our Mishnah. Right? I don't have to prove that he's wrong. In fact, in this case, I'm pretty sure he's right, because his father said the halacha, and I'm sure his father knew the halacha. But he wants to bring a proof from this Mishnah, that means it has to be airtight. If we can knock even a little bit of a doubt into it, that maybe there's another way of, we could use the Dibur idea instead of the Shabbos idea, then it's not a proof anymore. And that's enough. And that's often in the Gemora the go-to strategy. You brought a proof, I'm going to try to show that it's not necessarily a good proof. Why? Not because you're wrong 100%, but you're not right 100%. It's not airtight what you're saying. There's another way of looking at it. There's a possibility you're wrong. That's all we need to do, and that's often what the Gemora tries to do. To show that this is not a good proof. Sometimes that's as important as bringing a proof, as being able to show that a proof is not a good proof.
How do we know that Rav Nachman didn't know this? He knew this. Then he decided, I don't need to go in that direction. I'll just say it's tradition.
Look,
I mean, it's obvious that this is what it
Mar
is.
Zutra wasn't stupid. He's right. In principle, it's always best to have a proof to what you say. If you go ahead and you look at most poskim, they won't just say, believe me because I said it so. They might do as that, say that's my tradition, but I also have a proof. They almost always want to bring a proof to their words. It is a normal second nature to want to prove. I remember once when I was learning with someone, I just started out, and I said a certain statement, and he said, prove it. I was dumbfounded. I was like, I said it. I don't have to prove it. This is what I hold. He said, no, if you say something, you have to try to prove it. Just because I said it's true, that's like very weak. It's a weak position.
False news.
Every father knows that's true, right? When he says, do this just because I said so. We're very weak, if you could actually show how it's advantageous for everyone to follow that action, then you can get people on your side. Much more advantageous to prove that you're right rather than just say that you're right. Anyhow, when you're up to learning poskim, you watch how they poskim. They say something and then they try to bring a proof to what they said. It's just a normal method of learning. And that implies that if Reb Nachman didn't do it, because he didn't feel he had a proof, but it is sufficient for him to say, being the Gadol Hador, that this is the Kabbalah in our hand. This is how we received the halacha from the early generation. So he knows it's true because that's the tradition, but he can't necessarily prove it. Like, can you prove that tefillin should be black?
No.
So maybe we should wear white tefillin. It's a tradition we have. We can't prove it. Certain things we just know that they're true because we have a tradition. Even if we can't prove it, right? But the majority of the halachas that we have are not like that. It's a mixture. But ideally, if you can bring a proof, it's always better. So Mar Zutra was correct in that respect. But it's also a bit questionable that if really the proof is a Mishnah, it's like what we call an open Mishnah, often a Mishnah. A Mishnah that everybody knows. Like the famous story, they had a town in Europe called Shklov. You remember the Shklov, the people from Shklov? Almost everybody there was sort of won over to following the Gra. It took a very strong foothold of the Gra, which means that they really held by learning there. And so much so that even the simple people were very learned. So they had what's called a balagala. You know what a balagala was?
Well, there's a raffle, right?
Huh? No, it's a Hagala. Hagala, you know what Hagala is?
It's a carriage.
Today, it's like for a baby, but in the olden days, normal people used to ride in carriages that were for carrying them from one place to another. What we call today a car. But in those days it was pulled by an animal. That's called an agala. So the balagala was the driver. Right? So basically like a taxi driver. That tend to be unskilled, uneducated, very low, the lowest end of the totem pole in terms of the workforce. They say there was one balagala who's driving his wagon, and then he took a break, right? Like a taxi stand where all the taxis take a break, they get a coffee and they get whatever. In those days they got yash. You know what yash is? Schnapps. You know what yash stands for? Yain Sreifa. Whiskey or whatever. So he was stopped for his little coffee break, so to speak. And another guy pulled up, another taxi, another agala pulled up. And what did the one say to the other? Because they're from Shklav, remember. They're all held by learning Torah very much like the Vilna Gaon. He had been thinking of a Chiddush in, I don't know, Zvachim or something, right? So he said it over to the other guy. A Chiddush, that's what Jews do when they meet each other. They tell each other over Chidushei Torah that they had learned or that they thought of. Right? Like if you meet someone this evening, you should tell them over about Rav Shimi Barashi, or Mar Zutra, or Shabbos Kovas, or one of the halachas we're learning here, right? Especially if you think of a Chiddush, to say it's even better. So the one of them said over his Chiddush to the other, and the other one, also a learned guy from Shklav, he refuted it. Right? Like the antagonist who says, that's not a good shot. And he proved him wrong with a Mishnah in another Masechta. You're wrong. It says another Mishnah, not like you. So he proved him wrong from a Mishnah, from an open Mishnah, often a Mishnah. You know what the guy did when he was proven wrong from a Mishnah? It's like being slapped in the face.
What?
You forgot an open Mishnah? You forgot that? So he left the Agala there. It says for 3 years the Agala stood there. Well, he went and hid in the Beis Midrash out of shame that he had forgotten the Mishnah. And he learned for 3 years straight. That's the story. I think at the Rav Shmuel Arbach said it over his father's hesped, Rav Shlomo Zalman Arbach, and said his father, Rav Shlomo Zalman Arbach, used to tell them over stories about Chas v'Shalom not to be an Am Haaretz, right? Showing him how in Europe the worst thing was to be an Am Haaretz, and that's what this guy, to avoid being an Am Haaretz. And when for one moment it seemed like he was an Am Haaretz because he forgot a Mishnah, he abandoned his whole livelihood and ran to the Beis Midrash. For 3 years he didn't leave the Beis Midrash because he was so afraid of being an Am Haaretz. That's where they were holding in Shklav. That's how great they were in Shklav. So, what's going on in our Gemora, if you want to relate it to my story? Mar Zutra saying, my father forgot an open Mishnah. Because if he had remembered it, he should have brought it as a proof to his position. He didn't bring it, but I think it's a good proof. So in a certain sense, it's a mitzvah to knock down Mar Zutra in this case. To restore the kavod of Rav Nachman. It's not a good proof from an open Mishnah. He didn't forget an open Mishnah. He doesn't have to leave his Agala for 3 years.
So it's much more now. People more. Nowadays people.
Halavai people just remember the line right before the line they're on in the Gemora.
I think Halavai people should just do Chazar what they're doing. Halavai.
We have 24 hours a day. We could accomplish everything if we really wanted to. I'm just showing you how important it is to not forget your learning, and how even Mishnayos were so important in a normal society, that's what they were stressed, not forgetting even one Mishnah.
So why nowadays things have changed?
Well, I'm just saying, at least let's remember all that we're learning, right? If you remember all of Maseches Beitsa, you have a lot of Mishnahs that you remember. And the Gemora says the real pshat in every Mishnah, which is important. And hopefully you'll become a Talmid Chacham through that. Okay, let's get back to our Gemora then. So Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, strangely enough, is trying to help whom? The antagonist. You're trying to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father. You didn't do a good job of it. But Hachi Tzasalpe, this is how you should remove him. You want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father? This is how you should do it. I'll help you do it. As if there's a mitzvah to do it. So I just explained why it might be a mitzvah to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father. Even though logically all would have said it's a mitzvah to help your father. So Mar Zutra was doing a big mitzvah. How could anyone think to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father? It's like not patriotic or something, right? The answer is maybe there is a pshat in why they wanted to remove him. In any event, so let's follow this thread along. Okay? So he's saying, you want to remove him? This is how you should do it. Now let's start back in the Gemora. That was all just to explain Amar Rav Shimi Bar Ashi, and the Rashi explains what he's up to. Now what is he really saying?
He says that Eliezer Ka'amrat.
Which means?
I think it means that he had already said.
You're saying Rabbi Eliezer, meaning you're trying to use Rabbi Eliezer as your proof.
Yeah.
Let's see Rashi. Rabbi Eliezer Ka'amras.
Eliezer Ka'amrat.
Meaning, Minei, from him, from Rabbi Eliezer.
Maisis Yusa.
Si'ata.
The Shabbos.
The Shabbos Kavah. You're trying to use Rabbi Eliezer as a help to show that Shabbos is Koveya. Right? It's all emanating from Rabbi Eliezer's shot. And you want to use that as a proof that Shabbos is Koveya, like Reb Nachman said. Right. Which was the question of Rabbah to Reb Nachman. Reb Nachman said it. Now you tried to prove it, and you say you tried to use Rabbi Eliezer to prove that, right? But if you tried to use Rabbi Eliezer, that itself is going to go against you. Why? Let's go on in the Gemora. You're trying to use Rabbi Eliezer to do that? That's going to backfire. Why? L'tamei. Because Rabbi Eliezer, who said that Shabbos is Koveya, is L'tamei. He is going he's going according to his own shita, his own specific, unique shita, when he says that. Which, by the way, implies that those who argue on Rabbi Eliezer would argue with this as well. So when he said Shabbos is Koveya, it was all only according to his own specific reasoning. L'taimei. And Rashi says on that. Right, so we missed out on those few words in the Gemora. The Amar Truma Kava, because he's basing himself on the Shita of Truma B'Koveya. Okay, so let's see in Rashi. Truma is Koveya according to Rabbi Eliezer, what? Which is what we're trying to figure out. Can something that's lo nigmara malacha, that is not a finished product, become Koveya for Meiser? So Rabbi Eliezer says, it can be that you can take something that's not finished product and make it Chayiv and Meiser. But that's only in the case of what? If what? Lifting up means taking. Because what does the word truma mean anyways? What is truma, by the way? Truma is from the root word of what? Laharim. Ramam tanu mikol al-shonos. Right? Or even the word romema, where we're learning right now, romema. Right? Is a high place. Like we call a certain place in America, Washington Heights, Cleveland Heights. So that's what Ramot and Romema mean, right? The same root. So Truma is really called Truma because that's how you take Truma. How do you take Truma? You lift it up. Although the Gemora says truthfully, there is a way of taking Truma with just thinking that you want a certain part of your fruit and vegetables to be Truma. Did you know that? You could just do it with your heart. You could do it. But the normal way is to lift it up. So we talk about being Magbiya Truma. Okay?
Magbiya means?
To lift up, like we do by the Torah Hagbah. Or we lift up the handkerchief to be Kona things, Hagbah. That's actually called Kalipin, but when you lift something up, you can acquire something by just lifting it up, right? It's called Hagbah also. She'im higbiya truma. So if a man came up to his fruit or vegetables that till now was just tevel, unmeisered, untrumad, whatever, and he lifts up the truma. What does it mean he lifts up? He takes truma, what we call in our language, he took truma. So what happens if a person takes truma? From that moment on, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it becomes usher from now on to even eat a snack from this pile. Right? You have a pile of apples out in the field. It's not chayiv in anything, really. And you decide to take some truma as you see your friend, the Cohen, walking by, and you go, what a good opportunity. I'll give him a few apples and you'll see the truma already. Well, he just messed himself up a bit, because if he wouldn't have done that, then he's allowed to eat from it, right? A rye, a snack. But once he does take the truma, according to Rabbi Eliezer, then the rest of the pile becomes usher to even eat a snack, because it's chayiv and meiser. Ad Yafrish till he goes ahead and takes off all the other maestros, right? And there are a few different types of maestros. Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, etc. Right? So what made it chayiv and meiser? Just the act of taking the truma. So this is now Reb Shimi Bar Ashi's building a case, right? He's a very thorough, methodical guy. So he says, step one, you know the Rabbi Eliezer holds that truma is koveya for meiser. That if you just happen to take off a bit of truma from your pile that till now wasn't chayiv in meiser, but you took off truma, that act itself makes all the rest of the pile now chayiv and truma, chayiv and meiser. Right? So that's Shitas Rabbi Eliezer, right? That's special Shitas Rabbi Eliezer. Not everybody holds that way. Okay? So Rashimi Bar Ashi says, look, that's Shitas Rabbi Eliezer, right? That's Rabbi Eliezer L'Taimei. That's his special Shita. That if you take off a bit of Truma, the rest becomes Chayiv and Meiser. Not everybody holds that way. But Rabbi Eliezer does. So he builds up a case from that. He says, if Rabbi Eliezer holds that just taking off Truma makes it Chayiv and Meiser, the rest of the pile Chayiv and Meiser, then what? Let's go back to the Gemora for a moment. Then Kol Shekain Shabbos. Kol Shekain, then what? Shabbos would make even what? Fruit that had not what? Been a finished product, lo nigmar malachton, would be also by virtue of this kal v'chomer, what? Chayiv and meiser. Right? And we spoke about this logic the other day. Everyone get his logic? I mean, Rashi will hopefully explain a bit here, so we could wait till Rashi. You hear what he's saying? When I remove truma, I'm making kind of declaration about the rest of the fruit, according to Rabbi Eliezer. So So now when Shabbos comes in, it's also making the fruit a chashuv achila. Kol sheken Shabbos, let's read Rashi.
Kol sheken Shabbos, the chashiva achilasa.
Which means what?
It's chashuv for eating.
Its eating is chashuv.
It's eating is chashuv.
Those words make sense to you all?
Yeah.
That means when you put food in your mouth and you chew it and you eat it on a weekday, it's not a chashuv achila. It's like a nothing, right? Let's use the classic case where I ate a kazayis. So it's called an achila for a mitzvah, but it's not a chashuv achila. It's not a chashuv achila. It's not so important, right? Whereas on Shabbos, that little bit that I eat, that's why how we explained the other day that even though Kiddush has to be b'makam suda, right?
Yeah.
If I eat a kazayis, is that called a suda? What's normally called a suda?
Kazayis.
Normally a Beitsa is a suda.
For washing, you need a kazayis.
No, for washing you need a beitsa. For washing with a bracha. You go look up the halacha later. Ask Rabbi Rosen if you want. If you're eating exactly a kazayis, do you still wash with a bracha? No. You might wash because there's a shita maybe we should wash. We don't want you not washing, but not with the bracha. As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong. Come back tomorrow and say, Rabbi Rosen said I'm wrong, and we'll have to look into it. Right? So if you want to prove me wrong, like Rav Shimi Bar Ashi wanted to prove that Marzuta was wrong, I give you the permission to do so. In the meantime, try to follow what I'm saying. So normally a kazayis is not called a suda, but on Shabbos, can you be yotzi with a kazayis for your kiddush? Yes. You make kiddush and you eat a kazayis of crackers or whatever, you're yotzi. It's not a real suda, and ain't kiddush ala b'makam suda. The answer is on Shabbos is considered a suda. Because the achila on Shabbos is so chashuv. Exactly what Rashi is saying here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying a kal v'chomer. If taking off truma makes the rest of the pile so chashuv that it's now chayiv and meiser, so kal v'chomer, Shabbos is so chashuv, it should definitely make the rest of the food chayiv and meiser. But now look what he said. This is the ikar little vort that Rashi throws in over here, which the Gemora doesn't throw in until later, but Rashi's throwing it in now.
Isn't it a bit like comparing bananas and oranges? He's using two entirely different concepts here. One is Shabbos and one is Truma.
Right, but and remember that I mentioned the other day that when you take off Truma, since you're fixing up the rest of the fruit, you're making some kind of a statement, according to him, about the rest of the fruit. Why is it chayiv and meiser, according to Rabbi Elazar? Because they're making kind of a statement about the other fruit. I've decided now all this fruit is going to be part of my eating. So I gave the truma to this person. I fixed up the rest of it as far as truma is concerned. It means I gave it a certain tikkun because I want it to be ready to eat. So he's making some kind of a gesture of making it ready to eat. So I'm saying you're basically preparing all this food for eating in a very important way. Better than the dibur before. Remember we talked about the dibur before? Dibur doesn't work, right? To just say I want to eat from this. And even putting it on your plate doesn't really work. But he's saying taking truma does work. You know why truma does work? He says it's better than a dibur and better than even a meiser. Because it's a meiser that actually fixes everything else up. It does something. Halachically it does something. So he's saying you're making a statement about all the rest of the food. By taking out truma, you're fixing the whole pile. All other 98 apples are now chayiv in meiser because you actually fixed everything up. You brought it one step closer to eating through this taking off truma. Now it's all fixed up. Before it was tevel for truma. All tevel. All the 98, all the 100 were tevel. Now I've removed that status of being tevel in regards to truma. It's no longer tevel for truma. Truma's gone. Truma's been fixed up. Even the 98 that I didn't touch, they're fixed up for truma. So I did something. I actually did something to it's almost like cooking food, right? if I take food and I cook it up, that's making it very, very chashuv to getting it ready to eat, right? Could be that's also a svara for being chayiv and meiser. I don't know. But here, in a sense, halachically, he did that. He fixed up all of the 98 apples by taking off these 2 apples and giving it to the Kohen. All of those 98 now went up a madrega. They're no longer chayiv they're no longer tevel in regards to truma. They are tevel in regards to meiser. That's his point. But till now they weren't, right? And he's saying, I'm going to fix it up now that I fixed up all 98 in regards to the truma of it. So somehow he did an act which fixes everything up and brings it one step closer to eating.
So taking tax of money. Take the tax.
Yeah, the difference is that in tax, you still use your money before you give your taxes. I mean, the tax man would like it, but it works, right? You go to the store and you spend your money. The guy's not going to say, "Did you give your taxes on this yet?" You ever gone to a store and they ask you,
Get away
I'm sorry, I don't want to take this money from you unless there's been taxes given on it.
You'll get away with it. It's not the right thing to do.
But in Hashem's world, you're right. In Hashem's world, that's how, in a sense, he's saying it. I don't want you to put any food in your mouth till you've given the Kohen his food.
So I'm still about the Kol Shekein Shabbos. I understand.
Because I'm trying to explain to you that it was an indirect thing, right? I fixed up all 98 indirectly.
For Truma.
Yeah, but I did some kind of fixing of it, bring it one step closer to eating, okay? But when Shabbos comes in, we're saying anything you eat now already is a higher level of eating.
Because of the Truma.
No, any kind of eating you do on Shabbos. Like I said, with the Kiddush.
Yeah.
A kazayas of food suddenly becomes a whole meal. That means by definition, every time you put food in your mouth on Shabbos, it's considered a chashuv achila.
Oh, I see what he's doing. Okay, very good. In the same way that Truma fixes food up for Meiser, how much more so Shabbos? Because, or you could have said, in the same way that Truma does it, so does Shabbos do.
Well, he's saying kol shekin. He's saying it's even more so.
Right.
I was learning because when he takes out truma, he's really acting on these 2 apples, but it indirectly affects all the others. Indirectly, it's a statement and a fixing up of all the others. But Shabbos means every piece of food I have in front of me is already a chashuv achila.
Even the 2 apples.
Yeah, everything. No matter, even if and it's not just indirect, it's really not that I did an act to make it, but it is by itself. It is just, Shabbos coming in makes all food that now exists on a higher level.
Okay.
That's what he's trying to say.
That's good. I understand that.
And it might be, the truth is, it might be more than just the fact that it's Shabbos right now. We could be talking more specifically, I'm not sure, but it could be talking more specifically, like the case in our Mishnah, where he actually said, I want to eat this on Shabbos. So it could be saying a statement about the food that you're dedicating it to Shabbos. I want to eat this food on Shabbos, certainly elevates it to a level of achila chashuva. Just like taking up 2 apples elevates the rest of the food, and once it gets elevated, it's chashuv enough to be chayiv and meiser. So when I dedicate food to be eating on Shabbos, that dedication raises it to a level of being so chashuv that it's now chayiv and meiser. That's what he seems to be saying. But again, it's not that everybody in the world would hold that way. He's trying to set it up that only Rabbi Eliezer holds that way. It's not really that everybody in the world holds that way. That's how he's trying to take away Mar Zutra's proof. Mar Zutra might have proof that Rabbi Eliezer holds that way, but he will not be able to prove what his father was trying to say, which is that everybody holds that way. That's what he's trying to say. That I could present a good argument for saying it's only Rabbi Eliezer who would hold that way, because, look, he even holds that if you take off truma, you make something chashuv enough to be chayiv and meiser. Kal v'chomer, if you dedicate something for Shabbos, you made it chashuv enough to be chayiv and meiser. But that's only to Rabbi Eliezer who thinks that way. The Rabban don't even agree with that whole thought process. So therefore, they wouldn't necessarily hold that way.
Well, what would the rabbis want you to dedicate exactly what you need to do?
No, but the point is, when you dedicate food for Shabbos, do they hold that Shabbos is what made it chayiv and meiser? Maybe not. maybe only Rebbe Eliezer could be proven to hold that way, because he holds Truma would do that, and Kal V'chomer Shabbos would do it. But if you don't really hold that way of thinking that Rebbe Eliezer holds of, if the Rabbanan are saying it's chayiv, it's not because of the Shabbos factor necessarily. It might be because of the Dibur factor.
And do we know how the rabbis hold about Truma?
Yeah, that's his point. That's what he's saying. When he starts out by saying Rebbe Eliezer l'taimei, it's only Rebbe Eliezer according to his individual way of thinking. He means because on Truma issue, he is an individual who holds a certain way that the Rabbanim specifically argue with that. And that's the next words in Rashi. If you look at Rashi, the next few words in Rashi are Aval Emalach, meaning I can't prove it to you, but I'm going to suggest to you, I could say to you, which is what we said before. To disprove someone's theory, you don't have to prove he's wrong, you just have to disprove his theory, his proof. So I could say to you that in regards to the Rabbanim, that it's not true, that they hold Shabbos is what does it. I could suggest, Amalak is like saying, I could suggest to you, Ki heichi, to pligi betruma. Ki heichi means just as. Ki heichi means just as they argue regarding Rebbe Elezer's Kiddush about Truma being Kovea for Meiser. I could suggest that pligi b'Shabbos, that they also would argue with regards to Shabbos. I'll be back in a minute. Shimi Bar Ashi trying to attack Mar Zutra from a slightly different angle, and he's basically saying to the earlier Makshan, that we call the antagonist, who was trying to do the same thing, that although you may have failed in the way you tried to do it, we'll call it a direct frontal attack, I think you should have done it this way and you would have succeeded by doing an indirect attack. What's the indirect attack? Sruli?
By bringing Sutra. I think by putting Rabbi Eliezer.
We were already talking about Rebbe Eliezer. So what does he mean to say? Let's look at what Rashi said again. Haki Garsinan Ella Amar Rav Shimi Bar Ashi.
Haki Garsinan Ella Amar Rav Shimi Bar Ashi. That's what regards to Rav Shimi Bar Ashi says. Elam Shabbos Hu Dekava B'Masnisi.
What does that say?
Really Shabbos is Kavon al Mishnah.
Shabbos is what's being Kovea from Meiser in our Mishnah. So that sounds like whom?
It sounds like Mar Zutra.
Well, that sounds like he's going to support Mar Zutra. Right? Isn't that a bit strange? We know he's coming to attack Mar Zutra.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next part of Rashi. If you want to remove Mar Zutra, this is how you should do it. But he just made it an admission. Rav Shimi Bar Ashi holds that what was Kovea for Meiser in the Mishnah, like Mar Zutra said, Shabbos. So this is the strange part of Rav Shimi Bar Ashi. This is where he's a little bit devious. He's admitting that what's making it Kovua for Shabbos in the Mishnah is Shabbos. But yet he still wants to remove Mar Zutra as a support for Rav Nachman Shita.
Yeah.
Because what is he saying? Let's skip a Rashi.
Rabbi Eliezer Ka'amat.
Rebbe Eliezer l'taimei. It's only because he's going according to his reasoning. It's true, Rebbe Eliezer holds that way. The Shabbos is Kovea. But it's only Rebbe Eliezer l'taimei that he holds what? Truma is Kovea. For a davar shelo nigmar malachto, Rashi says. Truma could do that job. Truma could do the job according to Rebbe Eliezer. Okay. Next Rashi. Kol shekain Shabbos. What's the kol shekain? De chashiva achilasa. since the Echila of every Echila on Shabbos is so chashuv, that if you want to use food for Shabbos, that makes it automatically chashuv.
Yeah.
And therefore, if Truma can make something chayiv and meiser, certainly Shabbos can, Kol Shekain. But this is the important part. Aval. But I could say to you, meaning I can't prove it, but I can say it as a suggestion to knock out Mar Zutra's proof, that what?
Just like when the argue in Truma, piggy the Shabbos.
So what does it mean they argue with Truma? They hold that Truma what? Doesn't
take off.
What did Rabbi Eliezer just say? When I take off Truma from a pile of 9, and I had 100 apples, and I took off 2 of them for Truma, what happens to the rest of the 98 according to Rabbi Eliezer? Chayiv and meiser. Do the Rabbanan agree with that? No. They argue. That's what this Rashi is saying. And he's saying, Ki heichid the pligi b'truma, just like they argue on Truma, that they don't hold that taking off 2 apples makes all the other 98 chayiv and meiser. They don't agree with that chiddush. Just like they disagree in that chiddush, pligi the Shabbos. They'll also disagree that the Echila of Shabbos makes it automatically chayiv in Truma. Now, I'm sorry, meiser. Now, I just want to point out to you that with the very beginning of the sugi, we had the Tinokos who were bearing Ta'anim for Shabbos. And what do we say about that?
Can't eat it.
That makes it chayiv and meiser. Just wanting to use it for Shabbos, like Rashi said. They just designated it, even their little children. It's okay, even little children dedicate food to Shabbos, makes it what? Chayiv and meiser. Now, who said that? Was that Rebbe Eliezer, or was that even the Rabbanan? Even the Rabbanan. What's the proof? It was a Stam Mishnah in Meisros. It didn't have any names attached. What's the difference? Because Stam Ta'anim are what? No.
They're complete.
They're complete. They're a finished product. The normal Ta'anim was eaten as is. Even though you could decide to make jam out of it, but that was unusual. That wasn't the norm. So that's and Rashi said that over there, by the way. So nobody argued that Shabbos is koveya for meiser what if it's nigmar malachta. If it's a finished product, everybody agrees. It's a mishnah in meiseros. You can't argue the tinokos, right? Even little children can do that.
Okay, fine.
But what is the machlokus that we're speaking about here? That he's trying to say here? If it's lo nigmar malachta. If it's lo nigma marachta, maybe the Rabbanan, just like they argued that when Rebbe Eliezer says you take off a bit of truma, you make everything chayiv and meiser, all of a sudden, maybe that's what they disagree with. And the same way they disagree with that, they'll disagree with Shabbos being koveya for what? Lo nigma malachta. Food that hasn't been finished yet.
Okay, good.